What's up, Mac Nowstalgia? Dave here with a review of Burna Boy's 8th album, No Sign of Weakness. Of course, Burna Boy, the Afrobeats legend at this point, the paragon, the trailblazer of modern day African music in Western pop culture. We've been talking about Burna Boy and his impact for a while at this point, right? And I think the newest thing you can really point to with Burna is that his success with Afrobeats has now led to the success of other African genres in the West as the kind of opening of the door, right? Look at what Tyla has done with piano music. That success would not have happened if Burna Boy and others via Afrobeats hadn't already done the same. And on top of that, last year, according to the IFPI's Global Music Report, Sub-Saharan Africa was the only region to surpass 20% music revenue growth. And that makes 2 years in a row as them being the number one, highest growing music region. So not only is Burna Boy responsible for African music succeeding around the globe, but it's also having a big impact back home. And that's pretty awesome. We talk about the globalism of music all the time and how access has never been easier. And it's hard to quantify, I suppose, but it does feel like more people are more open to music from across the world than they ever have been before. Again, we talk about the Western reach of K-pop music and, of course, the massive success of Latin music worldwide as well. So it all feels connected, right? And that leaves a question of what's Burna Boy up to right now? Because this is album 8, when he blew up with what? I guess African Giant, maybe the album before that. It's been a really long, steady run from him. And obviously he's now, I feel like he was kind of a man kind of above his peers at one point in terms of the success and the popularity. But now you can look to people like a Rema. There's a lot of heavy hitters in Afrobeats and in general as African music at this point. Of course, Wizkid has always remained very stable, et cetera, et cetera. Now with Burna, though, what's he have left to say? Because I think creatively, I think it was probably a few years ago when people were most interested in his music. I mean, for me, his song Last from 2022 was my number one song of that year, a song I absolutely adore to this day. He hasn't quite matched the highs of that album, Love Demeany, since then for me. Of course, it's been a little under 2 years since the last album, I Told Them, which I also, still enjoyed for what it was, with hits like City Boys, the amazing Brandy sample on Sitting on Top of the World, nice collab with Dave, Cheat on Me, really linking with his Location hit-making partner there. It's definitely some good tracks. And now, I guess the question of, I feel like Burna Boy is almost like in a kind of like floating above it at this point, where it's just like he's already found so much success and made such a big impact beyond his individual career. It's like it's all kind of gravy, at least to me as an outsider. I guess not a Nigerian speaker, things like that, right? I don't know the genre well at all. I never would say I do. I'm just kind of an observer of how it works over here. Nonetheless, here we are with album 8. I think overall, Burna Boy's 8th album, No Sign of Weakness, certainly is not showing you a sign of weakness. This is a lot of really capable music from Burna, and he's, I think, long since expanded his sound beyond traditional Afrobeats that he made his name on. This is pretty wide-ranging and incorporating lots of influences and production choices and things like that. The African roots are still here, of course. Nothing really reaches the highs of Last to me. That is a song that is kind of peak Burna for sure. However, yet some of those vibes here and there on this album, really great and solid and steady uses of background vocals and children's choirs and things like that. I think the production choices here are very interesting. Burna's vocals continue to be very solid, and when mixed on some of those interesting beats, the songs still really pop. I do find Burna an interesting artist because he keeps a lot of his personal life pretty close to the vest. There's only like slight references to like specific things about his life outside of the music that you'll hear here and there, which makes it, I think, all the more interesting and fun when you do catch those moments from him. But in general, he feels like someone that kind of floats above it all, floats kind of above the pale. He has such a presence to him at this point. Going through the track list here, again, nothing really like jumped out to me as anything I disliked. I think No Panic, those early synths really stood out to me. The title track, No Sign of Weakness, I really like that drums. That sample in the outro is very choice. Specifically the, Come and Have a Good Time, very reminiscent of New God Flow from Kanye and Pusha T, Come and Have a Good Time with G.O.D. It's the same sample. Definitely brought me back in a good way. Bayou Life, I think, is a really nice arrangement production-wise. Very varied percussion. I love those background vocals as well. Love has a nice kick drum on it. I think the hook kind of like echoing with those background vocals really pops. Tata is a fun beat. It's very energetic. I think Burna doing a really good job with auto-tune vocals here. Travis Scott just okay. It's a fine collab, ultimately an unnecessary one. I don't know if he adds too much to the song, but again, it's an example of like Burna Boy kind of expanding out into stuff and doing his take on a little bit of trap, I guess you could say. Come Gimme, I think the hook's pretty weak on this, and the flow is also like pretty loose. Not my favorite. Dem Day though, I enjoyed this one. Sweet Love, I think that that brass rather, is very jazzy. Really, I think a really nice touch. Really sets the mood there. Burna really riding over those notes as well. Definitely one of the best songs here. 28 grams, it feels like the kick drum's hitting a bit harder with this one. I think the rhythms here are very fun. Burna's crooning really good. I think the best song out of all of them, though, would be Kabayese, which is this almost like house beat, definitely like a different vibe. A great example of Burna doing something new here would be Kabayese, which has this house beat, definitely a different vibe in terms of what we're used to from him. The beat's just okay. I think the song's just okay, but more than anything, it shows the potential that Burna has if he tries to go down this route in the future. So certainly interesting at the very least. Empty Chairs featuring Mick Jagger. I mean, I was not expecting a Mick Jagger feature in 2025. The man is in his 80s, but to have him and Burna link up via a shared connection of Naomi Campbell of all people, pretty interesting. Honestly, I think Mick sounds pretty good. I like the way the tempo eventually picks up in this song. I think Burna's flow is very tight. I love the child choir harmonizing. It's a pretty epic song. I really wasn't expecting it. It really surprised me here. Update, I like that deeper voice that Burna gives you compared to the previous vocals on the songs here. Lots of instrumentation. I think it's very nice. Pardon didn't do a whole lot for me. Bundle by Bundle, I think that tempo's up there. It's, very engaging. Familiar drum loops for, most of his sounds. And the swirling strings, though, here, very cinematic, very reminiscent of like the James Bond theme, to be honest, in a good way. Then you have Change Your Mind featuring Shabuzi, and obviously a big collab, big look for Shabuzi for sure. That country acoustic, very noticeable, right? It feels like a Shabuzi song more so than a Burna song. And because of that, I feel like this production's pretty out of place on the album. But hearing those two harmonize on the chords, it does sound pretty good. It just feels like a complete outlier track here. So yeah, shout out Burna Boy. Again, nothing really grabbed me to the way Last did, but he's a very solid artist with a very high floor at minimum. As he's proven for 10 years at this point, that hasn't really changed. Let me know, though, what you like most of Burna Boy's 8th album, No Sign of Weakness. What was your favorite song? And for more music reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time.